Welcome to Tybalt's Apprentice, a long time coming, and we are joined again by Just Cardboard MTG. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining
thanks for
me.
having me back.
Now, we threatened to bore people or whatever with more Lord Windgrace talk, but we're not going to do that this time, or not yet
Correct.
anyway. And hopefully, we didn't bore anybody
I
with it
hope not.
anyhow, but I hope not. But what we do want to talk about is something that, as I want to say, on everybody's mind, every set that comes out, every release that they have, um, everybody turns at some point, I think, to the topic of power
Yeah.
creep. So instead of talking about specific cards or specific decks, specific commanders, we're going to kind of approach the general topic of power creep. And this is something you had actually suggested to me when we were talking. And how long did you say you've been
I have
playing?
been playing for about 10 or 11 years now. So I've been
Okay.
playing since I think the set that my first pre-release was Born of the Gods or Journey to Nyx, whatever one came first.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So around that
Yes.
Theros block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when we had
Okay.
blocks.
And yeah, exactly. Ugh,
Me
I miss
too.
those
Me
so much.
too.
But anyhow, another
Yeah.
discussion for another time. I myself, of course, have been playing like forever since revised, and so on. So on and off since then. But even back then, we were talking about power creep. So even in the time that you've been playing, though, I
Yeah.
mean, you've seen how cards have grown in power and abilities and stuff like that. Um, what's your general what's your general gut reaction when somebody says something about power creep?
Nowadays, where I've been playing for as long as I have, it's the necessary evil. I would say the way I feel my opinion has changed the longer I've been in the game. I know when I first
Okay.
started, uh, I was all excited every single time when I would see something new where either it costs a little bit less and did more than one of my previous favorite cards or anything along the lines of that. Now I'm starting to see where power creep isn't always in just what they're printing, it's the way they're trying to, I don't want to say fix, but streamline things so where they change oracle texts and things and everything like that. I feel like by them changing oracle texts and everything kind of helps with the power creep and kind of keeps older cards more modern, if that makes any sense.
Keeps them
Yeah.
relevant, I think, is one way to look at it and stuff. Um, it's such a huge topic. Um, I thought there were like maybe three places that we could look at it and stuff, and we can certainly go off in any direction that
Yeah.
you want to. But one of the because I actually took notes, I prepared for this. One of the first things that I wanted to look at was how creatures have become more
Yeah.
efficient, and I found three what I think of as very good examples of power creep. In the beginning, and we'll talk a little bit more about vanilla
Yeah.
creatures in just a moment because I know you have some opinions on that,
Yes.
I'm sure. But creatures were absolutely underpowered based on their mana
Yep.
values initially. At least that's how it started. But then we got things like, and I'm just going to name all three of them:
Yep.
Tarmogoyf,
Yep.
Leatherback Baloth, and Questing
Mhm.
Beast. So you can see over the years, about 2007 is about the time Tarmogoyf came out. It was a two-cost creature that could suddenly become a 4/5, just like out of nowhere suddenly. But then we got the Leatherback Baloth, which was a 4/5 for just 3 mana.
Mhm.
So it's like obviously the power creeps up. Then we wind up with something like Questing Beast, 4/4 for 4 mana, tons of keywords, Haste, Deathtouch, Vigilance, and other abilities, and it's just skyrocket is what it feels like. So if you've been here to see all of those cards, you're looking at it and you're going like, oh my gosh, what are they
Yep.
doing to my game? If you've dropped in at any of those slots though, the power creep maybe doesn't seem as good. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that
Well, I
generally?
mean, even going back to your point of looking at older sets, one of my favorite older
Mhm.
cards, and I know it's not super old, but it's oh, now I can't remember. The Golgari, they basically call it the Planeswalker one drop. Deathrite Shaman?
Oh,
Deathrite
yes.
Shaman.
Yeah.
So that back then, when it came out, I remember hearing at the LGS when I started going there, and I think that was before I started playing. But I remember everybody talking about how it itself was basically a planeswalker creature, which planeswalkers we'll talk about
Right. Okay.
eventually. But back
Yeah.
then, that was one of the cards I loved to use, and I remember before it was reprinted, it was quite pricey when I started playing, and it was one of the cards where I was like, this is amazing. It's the best one drop I've ever seen. And then, yeah, we got other things along the time that came out. Like, I mean, recently that white one drop cat, I can't,
Yeah.
Ocelot. Yes,
Ocelot.
the Ocelot. That card is crazy and it's a one drop. And just going from Deathrite Shaman to the cat, I think the cat by far is probably better in some circumstances versus the Deathrite Shaman.
For
So it's
for
the
sure.
power creep. I've seen it, but like I said, I think it's a necessary. I think it's a necessary evil to have.
Well, and I think that you're calling it a necessary evil is absolutely true. Because love it or hate it, I can't help but think of, well, uh, in my terms, I would say Magic is a
Yeah,
living game. It's a game that is changing and evolving, and in order to keep it relevant, we talked about that earlier. To keep it relevant, they have to change there. You've got other games like chess. You know what the pieces are, you know what they do, and that's it. And it's always, forever going to be that. In a trading card game, not only do Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, whatever, want to sell more cards, there's obviously that. But to keep the game relevant and attract new people, I don't envy the
no,
designers and what they have
I
to do. I
I
really don't.
agree.
And as much as being an old man, shouting at clouds and stuff, I understand that they have to
Yeah,
do this. And so you can't come down on them for that and stuff. They've got to do things to make the game playable and keep it
yeah.
exciting and interesting.
Um,
Um,
one of the things power creep wise, because it does have to do with creatures. Are you okay with me talking spoilers?
sure,
So
absolutely.
one of my favorite sort of card types is sagas. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to any of the Final Fantasy stuff. Okay,
Not yet.
well,
No.
there is a blue saga that is a creature. Yes, and
Really?
I wish I prepared better for that one because it like that just goes to show the power creep because I believe it's a 3 drop blue. Can't remember what it does off the top of my head, but it is from the Final Fantasy set. But it being
Hmm.
a creature on top of the fact that it's a saga to me is just it's the next step power level wise versus like a regular saga because creatures are, yes, they're easier to interact with, but sometimes they're also easier to
Right.
protect. Plus they're easier to reanimate than anything else in the game except for maybe artifacts. I think
Sure.
artifacts might be easier than creatures depending on the deck you're in, but creatures are super easy to get back. So just by adding a creature type to sagas is a power creep in my opinion because it makes sagas that are creatures better than just regular sagas, in my opinion.
It's funny. I got distracted when you said that, only because it occurs to me that creature types and assigning that also gives you
Yeah.
buffs across the board and stuff. Now suddenly anthem effects are more important because of creature type. So it's just another form
But
of
the
power
issue
creep.
with that though is that it also gets confusing when they do things like that because now we have, for example, shrines. Shrine is not a creature type. So you cannot name
Right.
shrine as a creature type because it's not, even though it's in the creature type like text box, if you would say, it is not a
Hmm.
creature type. So if you play something like Cavern of Souls, you can't name
Yeah.
Shrine because Shrine is not a creature type. So
Okay.
even like changelings will not have the creature type shrine because it's not a creature type, which I understand, but for newer players, that's very confusing. And
It could be
it
confusing.
also kind of goes to like, that's not really power creep. That's just something they're eventually going to have to fix. Like maybe make shrine like defender versus like in the in the text box for the creatures. But yeah, that's just, I'm worried that sagas are going to be the same way, because if it's a creature to like, I think the creature type is an enchantment creature dash saga and whatever the creature type is, so we're going to run into the same issue there. So sorry, that's a little off topic, but it kind of is the
No, that's
game changing, where they're gonna have to figure out
sure.
things that way to fix. But that's just a little
Yeah.
detail that I caught that I don't know if everybody else is also going to catch at first. So
Good thing to bring up now so we can
yeah,
start thinking about it, and that puts people ahead of the curve. If they are listening to this, they can start thinking about that now and checking those rule texts, so when they get there and it comes up in the game, you're
yes,
ready to go. You had mentioned earlier
yes, I
Planeswalker,
know you're not a fan of them.
but I have come to accept, for me, Planeswalkers fit the category of commander. I love, and in fact, majority of my commander decks
Yes, they are.
are Planeswalkers. I mean, the ones that can be and stuff. So that's another example of power creep. So I've got three more of those to choose from, not to choose from, but examples. Starting with 2007, Jace Beleren. So one of the first early Planeswalker, had some abilities, had a little bit of effect on the game. Okay, not too bad. Suddenly in 2010, just a few years later, we've got Jace the Mind Sculptor. Four different things that he does, and they are a powerhouse. But then we go to 2019 and we get
Oh,
Oko.
see, I was thinking Narset.
What what the heck were they thinking? Oko, I think
Mm.
Oko for me at least is the pinnacle of what the hell are you
See, I
doing?
think for me, Planeswalkers kind of became that way when they got static abilities. I think static
Okay.
abilities, so that was War of the
Was
Spark?
that in War
Yeah,
of the
because
Spark?
we
Yeah, yeah.
got that's where we got the Narset that basically prevents everybody from drawing. That's where we got, yep,
Harder of
we got
friends.
the Jace that also helps with I believe it was Jace, isn't it the Jace that has the Oracle effect or Lab Man effect on him? I believe it was Jace.
Oh, I think so.
And
Yeah.
we got some of my favorites out of there too, like who else was in there? Oh man, the Wanderer was in there.
Oh, yes, yes,
And
yeah.
they it introduced a lot of planeswalkers, but I think the second they put the static abilities on planeswalkers, it kind of took them out of the realm of being a planeswalker and more into something powerful. I Oh, go ahead. I was gonna
No,
say
go
I am
ahead,
the
go ahead.
exact opposite of you. I love planeswalkers, and I love planeswalkers because of the fact when I'm playing them, it's like I'm playing with friends because we are planeswalkers as we're playing. So I think of it as having another me that can distract people. So I'm like, hey, if you guys aren't swinging at me and you're swinging at my planeswalker that really I don't care about. Yes, I want its abilities, but I'm gonna just throw it out there because I know you're gonna swing at it. Why wouldn't I do that? So I like them for that aspect. And
Well, I like your analogy or your way of thinking about that, because that's why it works
yeah,
for me so well as a
yeah,
commander. Because I am the general, and here are my minions that are
yeah,
doing my bidding and stuff. So I like it that way. I've The static abilities to me actually help me, and somebody else described them to me as this, and it's like, just don't think of them as any other thing. Think of them
yeah,
as enchantments. There, and then with the static abilities, that really gives the feeling of an enchantment, because it's out there and it does something, and it's just doing something without worrying about
yep.
loyalties or anything else. So you deal with them
Yeah.
on that same thing. You need removal for enchantments. You need removal for planeswalkers also,
And
for sure.
that's one way that I've explained planeswalkers to people as well when they don't fully understand like why they're so cool to me. I explain it that way too. I'm like, they're like enchantments that people can swing at. And or nowadays, because we have battles, they're more like a battle than they would be an enchantment, because, or yeah, they're called battles, right?
Right.
Because of the fact
Yep.
that people can swing at them to remove them. um i
Right.
do think I do think what most people don't like about planeswalkers is emblems. And I think if we had ways to interact with emblems, or if they made emblems a permanent instead of being this just permanent thing you got, I could understand that, but then it wouldn't make the payoff of popping a planeswalker as good. So I understand both arguments of it. I get why people
Sure.
don't like planeswalkers. Since I started, I loved planeswalkers. I mean, my main commander now, as everybody knows, if they've watched before, is
Mm.
Windgrace. And I tend to run at least one planeswalker per deck. Not, I mean, it's just my thing. I just like planeswalkers. And to be quite honest, in Commander, they're not really that good. I,
True.
and I'll be the first to admit this. I play a lot of planeswalkers in Commander, and I know they're not good, especially if they don't have any self defense, like they can't make tokens or anything.
Right.
So
Right.
for me, I just run them because I know a lot of people don't expect to see them, and then it gives them something else to focus their attentions on. And if they're going to waste a removal spell on my planeswalker versus anything else, let them do it.
Right. And my thing too, also, like if you're going to attack anything and you're going to attack my
Mhm.
Amanatu or whatever,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
I'm okay with it.
yeah.
No problem. Excuse me 1 second. Not a sponsor of the show, but I was just a little dry there. Sorry
Completely
about
okay.
that.
I understand. I have the wood stove going right now, and it's right under me, so it cooks my game room,
Oh, man.
and it makes it wicked dry in here. So I understand.
Oh my gosh. So when it comes to cards, another place that we've seen power creep, of course, is in the form of removal and
Yep.
card advantage. So some cards that I pulled to kind of talk about or think about were something like
Yeah.
Doomblade around 2010. Doomblade, solid removal, had the downside of not being able to hit black things, black creatures. Um, then we go to
Yeah.
Fatal Push around 2017. And that kills most things for just about 1 mana, thanks to
Yeah.
Revolt, depending, on that ability and stuff. Um, and then as far as card drawing, like then we go to Orcish Bowmasters.
Yeah.
Like that's quite a jump there,
I
you know?
fun fun little story. The other day, I opened a jumpstart box of Lord of the
Mhm,
Rings. It was the second version of the jumpstart box. I pulled two Orcish
mhm.
Bowmasters out of that, and then on top of that, I opened two just packs I had kicking around because I bought one of the Costco
Uh-huh.
things. I also opened an Orcish
Right.
Bowmaster in that. I opened three Orcish Bowmasters in one night.
Oh
Um, and two of
man.
them were out of a jumpstart booster box, which is just nutty because
Wow.
yeah. So now I have a full play set. Um, but I was like,
Nice.
man, I never pull anything good out of Lord of the Rings. And then yeah, it made me be quiet. But yeah, Orcish Bowmaster is super annoying, and that's like some of the power creep that is just incredible. Or Massacre Girl. Look at Massacre Girl. I mean,
Oh
we had
yeah.
Massacre Worm, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. Like we had effects like
Yeah.
that, but Massacre Girl, I remember when that came out at the time, I was playing standard on Arena because they didn't have all Brawl, or maybe they did have Brawl, but I didn't like it. I don't really remember, but I remember Massacre Girl on there, and every time she came out, I was like, oh, there goes my field. I'm like, what am I gonna do? So
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
that a lot, but I also see that a lot with like the protection spells we've been getting. Like sorry, there's the one drop gives hexproof, puts a +1/+1 counter on it.
Is that was it the green
Yeah.
one? Most of them are green usually, but
Hold on. I have Snakeskin Veil. It's
yes,
literally a 1-drop green, and it gives a +1/+1 counter on the creature, plus it gives it hexproof, which
yeah, wow,
is crazy in itself. Like, just hexproof for 1 mana. I don't even care. Like, the counter alone is worth the 1 mana. Hexproof is worth, to me, at least 2 mana. The way I was taught to look at Magic is each ability is at least one cost if you were going to break down a card.
okay,
So like for
right.
that, in my eyes, that should be a 2 cost spell all day long, because I mean it gives you a +1/+1 counter, and it also gives you hexproof. Now I love the fact that it's a 1-drop, don't get me wrong, but that just goes to show you, because some of the older cards that would have been a 2 or 3 drop if it was printed.
I'm thinking 4 or 5,
Yeah,
just because I've been
yeah,
in the game that
yep.
long that, like, way back then, like, "Oh my
Well,
gosh, it does 2
one of the
things? You gotta
yeah,
spend 5
one of the
mana
cards
on
I
it."
posted the other day is Archon. It's the white Archon. It's a 4 cost
Oh,
4/4
yep,
flyer for 4.
for 4.
Minus whatever else it does. It is a 4 cost flyer for 4. Yes, it's in white,
Yeah,
but still, it is a 4 cost flyer. It's it's a 4 cost fly 4/4 for 4. Like, it just, I
yeah.
remember thinking a 2/1 flyer for 2 was amazing. Even as even the 0 or the Ornithopter, the 0/1 was amazing.
Helicopter.
And now
Yeah,
we're getting like
for
that,
sure.
and I'm just like, oh. I'm like, okay. And then the other thing that Archon does is change all your creatures into 4/4s, and I believe it gives them flying. Which
Yeah, yeah,
that should have been at least a 5 or a 6 cost spell. 100%.
absolutely,
But like, it
absolutely.
just goes to show you things like that in the game is what people see as power creep. But at the same time, I just feel like it's something new, because how often do you actually see cards like that? I don't remember the
Yeah,
last time I saw that Archon hit the battlefield.
exactly. So when people talk about power creep or something
You're
ruining,
good.
sorry about that, something ruining
Hmm.
the game, the first thing that I think of goes all the way back to, I want to say, Celestial Dawn.
Yep.
It was a card that turned all of your cards
Yep.
white cards.
I know the
And it's
card.
like, oh my gosh, that's
I
gonna
have a
ruin
couple
it.
copies of it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I had never, I think I can honestly say I have never seen anybody play it in the game. And I mean, I've been
I've seen
playing
it
for that long.
once.
For all the people that complained about it and everything else, like,
Yep.
never happened, just never did. So I think a lot of people bank on the fact of running things down and just being negative on things or whatever. And it's like, is it
Yeah.
really that bad? Is it really the end of the world? Is it the end of Magic?
Well, I mean, come
I
on,
don't think
White
so.
Borders was going to be the end of Magic.
Exactly. Exactly. Now we have people going the other way that are going out of their way to get the
I'm one
white
of
border
them.
stuff.
I love White Borders. I'm not even gonna lie. I one of the cards that the mystery booster boxes I got, the second
Uh-huh.
editions, I've gotten 2 of those. I've pulled a White Border strip mine, which, or Wasteland, whatever
Nice.
one came in there, Wasteland,
Wasteland. Okay.
which was super crazy. I pulled 2 White Border Isochron Scepters. Like, I have a
Sweet.
ton of those white border cards, and it's because I was one of those people when I started. People are like, "Oh, you have white border?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, I do." And I think my Vampiric Tutor might be white border.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah,
I
I
love
do.
it.
I like white border. I like the retro frames. I also like the future sight frames. I know not a lot of people do. I pulled the
Yeah.
future sight Memnite, the full art future sight. Yeah,
Oh,
that is
nice.
in my
Yeah.
vanilla deck. Because it is a 0 cost vanilla creature. Of course I'm gonna run it. But yeah, so I think it's funny because you bring that up, and I remember starting when I started in Magic, and almost every big change in the sets, I remember hearing the older guys at the shop going, "Oh, this is gonna kill Magic. It's gonna kill it. It's done." Um, and there's some things where I've been like, man, I really don't think this is the right call. And then there's been things where I'm like, nah, see, I like this. And I,
Yeah,
as long as they're not going out of their way to purposely mess up the game or to just
right.
profit off from like slimming down the chase cards and everything, which I don't feel they're doing. I open enough product where I don't feel like the chase cards are any harder to pull than they've ever been, which is something I've heard about through people
Right.
in the community. They're like, I never pull anything good. And I'm like, some people just don't have good pull luck. And I hate to say that, but it is really all about
Yeah.
luck. And, I've opened numerous boxes where I didn't hit a single chase. And I'm like, oh, this was a dud. I can't pick my own boxes. I gotta let the wife do it if I want to pull anything good. I know this. Um, but
Right.
no, there's a lot of things in Magic, even in my 10 years of playing, that I've heard people going, this is gonna end kill the game, and it never does.
And it does, and it keeps going. Well, I'm glad, and I hope that there are enough stewards there that are going to continue to
Mhm.
guide it in a good direction and stuff. And this is might be a
Yeah,
tangent or whatever, but the way I think about this, and may have even mentioned this already when I was talking to you before, but the way I like to think about this is like my favorite bands, the bands that I like the most music, don't put out the exact same thing every time, and I don't necessarily love every song that they do, but I love the fact that they reach and they go beyond. And sometimes it's a hit,
yeah.
sometimes it's a miss, but it's the best of the music or whatever is out there and stuff. And I feel like it's the same thing with Magic
I
cards and stuff. Not everything's going to hit
I
for me every time,
I
but that's
completely
okay.
agree with that. And then some of the things that weren't a hit initially, later on, you actually look back and you're like, wait a minute, that set was actually pretty cool. I recently did that with now don't get me wrong, it was a cool set. I just wasn't overly in love with it. Was Kamigawa Neon Destiny. I
Hmm,
love
yeah.
I love the artwork and everything. I just wasn't a huge fan of the set, but I opened a booster box the other day, and as I was opening it, going through it, I'm like, wow, these are actually like this set was actually way cooler than I remembered it. And that's only because it wasn't one of my favorite sets to open because back when it came out, I didn't like the futuristic idea. I was one of those people. I know, I was one of those people, but that's because the group of friends that I played with were all trash talking it because they're like, "Oh, we shouldn't be going to the future. We shouldn't be doing this." And then we got the set and I was like, "All right, this is cool. I like some cards out of it." Kind of left it alone, saw some of the commanders, fell in love with some of the commanders that are out there from the set, and then I was like, I haven't opened one of these. Let me open one. So I opened one of them, and I was like, oh no, the set actually is pretty cool. So I think we're all
Yeah.
gonna do that. They're not gonna hit on everything, but if they did, the game would be boring. If we liked
Yeah,
every single thing
absolutely.
that came out, for one, we'd all be broke. Two, the
For
game would get
sure.
boring, it would get stale, and we would end up leaving the game. Even with like the thing with power creep, if power creep wasn't there, we wouldn't have new decks to overcome or new cards to figure out how to beat and play around. Y-
And one of the things that you said, and I'm not even
Yeah,
sure because of the technical issues or whatever and stuff, whether you said it
yeah,
on this when we were talking, or maybe the first time that we visited the subject, but you talked about the fact that power creep can be evident in
yeah,
older cards
yep,
that we maybe missed the first time, or not necessarily missed, but maybe new cards have made older cards more
yes.
valuable.
Or
So there's power creep in that
yeah,
direction also.
and the other way I think of it too is they make more cards. So the card I was actually talking about, it was before we started this, so they didn't hear that part.
Mm,
But the card I wanted to
yeah.
mention was hold on one second, I have it pulled up. It's a enchantment aura. It's canopy cover and it came out in Zendikar. It is a 2-cost aura,
Okay.
and it says enchanted creature can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. And then it also says enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls. Now, they have not changed the Oracle text to say the creature you control has hexproof. So this card gives no abilities to your creature. It's the enchantment that has it. So if you equipped it to a vanilla creature, your creature now essentially has flying and hexproof with no keywords and without giving it any abilities, which in my opinion makes it even better.
Tell me why that is. I personally know there's a specific reason why vanilla creatures and why that is so
Ah,
important to you. If you want to tell me about it, or if you want to tell anybody that happens to be listening or watching this, why is that important to
because
you?
I built Terry, the new it is a 5-cost 9/7 legendary creature ooze dinosaur that is a vanilla creature, and I wanted to build a deck that was more random playgroup friendly and stream friendly. So I built a vanilla creature deck. So while I
I
was
love it.
building this creature deck, a lot of the older cards I was looking at, and I had to keep going back and looking at Oracle texts because if they had changed it to say your creature has hexproof, that creature now gains that ability. So it technically makes it so hexproof would show up in their text box. So then it is no longer a vanilla
Right.
creature. Which in the deck, I actually don't have anything that cares about vanilla creatures. I just set that as my own challenge. None of the creatures have any abilities. Um, I do have some protection spells, but that's because I need a little bit of protection spells. But
Sure.
then
Yeah.
I found that canopy, the canopy card, and I was like, this is amazing. And there are other cards that are like that that basically one of them, I can't remember what it's called. I pulled it out only because it didn't really fit the theme. It says uh all creatures able to block this creature do so. So if you swing with it, but it doesn't give
So a lore,
it's like lure. I don't think it was lure, or
like
maybe it
lore.
was
Okay.
lure. I don't remember. It might have been lure. Um, but it was one of them. It was worded the way so it can't say has. If the card says has on it, that gives the creature the
Hmm.
ability. I had to do a lot of research for this deck because I kept getting confused. Even though I've been playing it this long, it's still certain things you had to check, just like if it has Defender in the box, that's an ability. Changeling is an ability,
Right.
which I didn't know Changeling was an ability. Like I just never thought about it, but that is an ability.
Sure.
So yeah, there was a lot of different things. But yeah, that's just one of the cards that I thought of when I was thinking of power creep, because even though they could have changed the Oracle text to give it hexproof, they didn't. And in my
Right.
opinion, it made that card stronger than the cards they have changed it in, because if the equipment where you can pay to remove indestructible and hexproof, thank you.
Shadow
Yeah,
Spear.
Shadow Spear won't affect that. So it doesn't
Right.
remove the fact that it can't be targeted. So now to me, I'm
Right.
like, I'm gonna start running this in more green decks because of the fact that, for one, it basically gives it unblockable or flying, and
Right.
two, it gives it hexproof without giving hexproof.
I
So
love it.
cards
I
like
love it.
that, in my opinion, have gotten stronger over time, whereas other cards like the 5-cost enchantment, and I never pronounce it right, but it starts with the A, and it gives hexproof. It originally was
Hmm.
worded where it said creatures you control cannot be the target of spells or abilities. So it
Right.
just said that. But then they've changed the Oracle text to now it just says creatures you control have hexproof.
Okay.
So them
Yeah.
changing that, in my opinion, hurt the card. It kind of brought the card
Gotcha.
down. I mean, Hexproof is still good. It's a good card. You should play it if you're in
Yeah.
a creature deck. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that.
For sure.
But in my
Yeah.
opinion, the Oracle text change hurt the card. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's
Gotcha.
bad.
Indeed. I'm looking at the
Oh wow.
time and I'm realizing we could go on
We could.
forever and just talking about stuff and so on. But I should probably bring this to a close and try to edit it down to something that people will actually enjoy watching. I mean, they could listen to us all the time, but they might get tired. I can't imagine that, but
Yeah.
they might get tired at some point. Anyhow, I'm going to say thank you too much for the
Yeah.
time you spent. I really appreciate it. I love
Thank
having
you.
you
Thank
back
you.
here. I'd love to have other
Yeah,
people back too. Other people come and
definitely.
join also. Um, Again, once I get to Arizona, I'll be a little bit better established, and we'll talk about that when that
Yeah.
happens. What I'd like to know about now, though, just Cardboard MTG. You're on
Yeah.
Instagram. What else have you got going on? What anything
Um,
else, or that's where
yeah,
people can find
so
you?
everybody can find me on Instagram. It's at just cardboard MTG. And yeah, I got some smaller projects, well, some bigger projects kind of coming out. I'm working with a up and coming Kickstarter game, which I'm super pumped about. It is called it is I can't pronounce it, but it's like TFTW. I unfortunately I'm trying to learn how to pronounce it, but it's one of those words I'm not used to. But it's kind of cool. It reminds me of a mix of the card game War, if you've ever played that,
Okay,
and
sure. Yeah,
fantasy. So it's gonna be cool. I should be actually getting my package in soon, so I'm gonna be making videos about it and stuff. So I'll be able to show it off, but I'm
cool.
excited for it
Nice.
because it's something I'm gonna bring to the LGS and play in between rounds and stuff for pre-release and stuff because it
Perfect.
is that easy to pick up and play that anybody can play it. So yeah, that's the only big project that I'm
Good.
working on. So yeah,
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. And thank all of you for tuning in. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, do all the
yes,
YouTube stuff that you normally do. For me, I'm going to say you can always find my cards now at my TCG Player store. I upgraded that. So I actually have an official store. So I think I don't know, the link will appear somewhere on the screen or in the comments or whatever. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Look forward to talking to you next time. All right, I guess we're
sweet.
clear. Sweet. I'm going to turn off the record. So we started recording again. So we got some bonus
Yes,
content for
bonus
this
content.
episode. I maybe won't even mention it. We'll just let the loyal people, the people that actually stuck around, get the bonus
Yes.
content. Anyhow, what are we
So
talking
we
about?
just got on the topic of slivers and the power creep in slivers. And here is my take on it. Slivers used to be easy to deal with because all you had to do was run another sliver deck. All older slivers
Right.
said slivers gain whatever they gain. Now the slivers no longer say that. They say slivers you control gain those bonuses. So in my opinion, that's a sign of power creep right there because you're taking an already crazy typal type and changing it to basically a new like subset of that typal because of the fact that they no longer affect everybody's slivers, only your own.
It's interesting that you would look at it this way because I could hear a certain segment, a certain group of people going, oh no, they've taken away my ability by just making it my slivers, instead of looking at it and having the mindset of like, okay, suddenly my slivers become more important, more better,
Yep.
more whatever the case may be. So that's a good way to look at it, as again
Yeah.
power creep and stuff, that the strengths, these limitations actually become
Yep.
stronger for the person that's actually using it to their
And
advantage, for
that's
sure.
yeah, that's I could see it from the other aspect too of people going, "Oh, it does hurt my slivers because they don't get the +1/+1 extra buffs or anything." But really it's more of a benefit because if you're getting all the abilities and not sharing indestructible shroud or anything like that on your opponent's creatures now, then it's a benefit to you, not to them.
Absolutely. I think about that same thing when I do board
Yeah.
wipes and stuff like that, that it's like I'm in control
Yeah.
of them though. Yes, this hurts my stuff or whatever. So ideally you would roll one-sided board wipes. But even though I run
Yeah.
both, I mean, complete board wipes, the fact that I'm controlling them and I
Yeah.
know when they're coming, and that's a benefit to me. That's a little bit more power in my another arrow in my quiver, or
I never
whatever
looked
that
at
I
board
have.
wipes like that, but you're 100% correct. Wow, that's such a good way to look at them.
I love it. Well, there's so many ways, and we had I mentioned earlier that I was on the Superfast Tortoise show, and we talked about the way you look at deck building and stuff, and we have very different ways. There are so many ways to do this, but when I'm playing and stuff, I like to play to the outside situations or whatever. I like being hard to kill. I like people thinking they have me dead to rights, and then darkness. I had 1 black mana available. Like, you didn't get me. They'll kill me next turn, but like, you didn't get me this time. But anyhow, I digress. Anyhow, that wasn't even the bonus content. The bonus content was talking about slivers and power creep and another way to look at it. We need to stop because we will just go on and on and on. Anyhow, thank you again. Thank you for sticking around for the bonus content.
Yes.
Thank you for sticking around for the bonus content. And I really have to hit the stop button now.